VoltCon 2024 is beginning now! Please join us at the Castle of Alliance main bridge for Let's Voltron, the official Voltron podcast!
Thank you, Corinne.
Thank you, Corinne. The gorgeous man.
So welcome to VoltCon 2024, the 40th anniversary of Voltron. And this is the Voltron 40th anniversary panel. I am Marc Morrell, the host of Let's Voltron, the official Voltron podcast. And with me is
Greg Tyler, co-host of Let's Voltron.
Shannon, Muir, Broden, a longtime friend of the podcast, and glad that you invited me here today.
All right. So, of course, this is something that we're going to go through a little quick slideshow here, but we have a little thing to kick it off first.
I put this together in 2013, when Voltron was only 29. This is just a fun edit to figure out what might the original show have looked like if the intro to the entire series had acknowledged both robots instead of a completely separate sequence for each one. So
would have been cool if we knew that.
yeah.
So, of course, Voltron, Defender of the Universe, started with the animation from Toei Animation from Japan. And it was originally called Beast King Go Lion, and the other show was Armored Fleet Die Rugger 15.
And we have to acknowledge the much forgotten, not forgotten, but never quite produced Lightspeed Electroid Albegus. So.
Yes. So all of those things go into what was Voltron, the localized American version of Beast King Go Lion and Armored Fleet Die Rugger 15. And of course, this is what we're celebrating all these years later, 40 years later, because Voltron was a hit back in the day between like 84 and 86. Had some pretty good ratings, I heard.
Yeah, and some people remember it 40 years later.
Yeah. So what we're going to do in this this whole panel, we do have a giveaway, all right, for one lucky person in the audience who might not have one of these already. This is the Little People collector set from Mattel Creations and Fisher-Price. And we had, our last podcast was a couple of guests from that company were on with us to talk about the Little People collector set. So,
yeah, it's pretty cute. Seriously, it's really neat.
So during that podcast, we had promised during the 40th anniversary panel at VoltCon 2024, we will be giving away one of these. So it's going to go to one random lucky person out there.
It could be you.
It could be you, yes. Okay. All right, so one of the things that we wanted to talk about in this panel was what was going on back in 1984 and what was popular and what was going on. And then Shannon's going to take it over and she's going to talk about the culture of Voltron over the years and how Voltron has become part of the zeitgeist. And then Greg's going to take over and he's going to talk about all this merchandise that has come out in this 40th year of Voltron.
Merchandising, that's right.
All right, so what happened in 1984? Well, there's a lot to go over. Apple had aired the dystopian 1984 Super Bowl ad supporting the launch of their Macintosh computer. While the Macintosh may have not been their most popular item, it basically used George Orwell's 1984 book to paint a picture of what it might be like in the future. This was also the year that the Soviet Union boycotted the 1984 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. If you recall, the United States had boycotted the 80 Olympics in Moscow. The cause of AIDS was identified as HIV, human immunodeficiency virus. Clara Peller asked, "Where's the beef?" in Wendy's commercials.
Oh, I don't think there's anybody back there.
I don't think there's anybody back there. Michael Jackson's hair caught on fire while filming a Pepsi commercial. There was a little bit of gel in that hair. Crack cocaine was identified before becoming an epidemic.
No relation.
The Space Shuttle Discovery's maiden flight happened that year, and it was also the first untethered spacewalk out in space. There was the first solo transatlantic balloon flight by Joseph Kettinger. UK miners went on strike for a year. China and Britain agreed to return Hong Kong to China in 1997. Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India, was assassinated. And there was famine in Ethiopia exposed in a BBC report. Shocking pictures filmed by a BBC news team sparked a global effort to raise funds to help. And there's a song that we're going to be talking about a little bit later on. So what was happening on TV in 1984? Some of the popular TV shows and cartoons in 1984. The TV shows were The Dukes of Hazzard, Magnum P.I., That's Incredible, Hill Street Blues, The Fall Guy, Cheers, Family Ties, Knight Rider, Silver Spoons, A-Team. Anybody have a favorite show that's not on the list from '84? Okay. All right. On the cartoon side, we had Transformers, Fraggle Rock, Inspector Gadget, a little thing called Voltron, Dragon's Lair, Snorks, Super Friends, and Dungeons and Dragons. What was everybody's favorite cartoon in 1984? Anybody?
I wasn't born yet.
Yeah. Yes?
I also wasn't born yet, but Rainbow Bright.
Ah, Rainbow
Oh,
Bright.
that's right.
Yeah. I could have also said, what, Muppet Babies?
Or Gem.
Yes.
Gem and the Holograms.
Right.
I think Jim was a little later, but I might be mistaken.
Okay. All right, so what was happening on the music scene in 1984? Some of the biggest songs were Jump by Van Halen.
I love Van Halen.
When Doves Cry by Prince. The Heart of Rock and Roll by Huey Lewis and the News. Sister Christian by Night Ranger. Every Breath You Take. These are just popular songs, by the way. These aren't from every genre. Eyes Without a Face by Billy Idol. Thriller by Michael Jackson. Round and Round by Rat. Some of the biggest albums, and 1984 was a strange year for albums because when it comes to like what was the #1 albums in 1984, there was only basically 4. It started off the year with Thriller for many weeks, and then for like 1 week it became I think Footloose soundtrack and maybe Sports by Huey Lewis and the News. But then there was a bunch of weeks with Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen, and then the whole rest of the year was Purple Rain by Prince. Madonna didn't have the #1 album that year, but Like a Virgin was still a huge album, and Van Halen's 1984 was a huge album. 1984 was the last album that David Lee Roth was on with Van Halen. So after that, he was replaced by Sammy Hagar.
I love both of them equally.
Hagar!
For different reasons.
December 3rd of that year, we had talked about the BBC report that talked about famine in Ethiopia. Bob Geldof from the Boomtown Rats had seen this report, and it touched him very deeply, so much so that he decided to bring together all of his musician friends, and they put together a song called Do They Know It's Christmas? And the band he called was Band Aid, and Band Aid was actually a non-profit organization for famine relief in Africa. And it became the fastest selling single of all time in the UK at the time. So what kind of movies were happening in 1984? Some of the popular films released that year were Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Gremlins, The Karate Kid, Footloose, Ghostbusters, Red Dawn, Romancing the Stone, The Terminator, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Beverly Hills Cop, Police Academy, The Never-Ending Story, and 16 Candles.
Were they talking about making a Voltron movie at that point too? It does seem like it's been a long time in coming.
No, they were not talking about making a Voltron movie at that point.
Well, 85.
Yeah.
That is correct. We'll get to that in a different panel.
But one thing that you notice with a lot of these, only Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was a sequel. Everything else was basically the beginning of a franchise.
Remember what that was like?
Yeah, if you look at today's world, you see a lot of sequels in the top movies of the year. Okay, toys and trends. This is my last part, but the biggest toys that year were the Cabbage Patch Kids, Trivial Pursuit, some of the Transformers toys, the G.I. Joe toys, Masters of the Universe, and the Voltron toys. Some of the biggest trends, just to let you know what it was like back then, federal minimum wage was only $3.35 an hour in '84. If you went to the movies, it would cost you $2.50. Milk was anywhere from $1.10 to $2.20 a gallon. The biggest fashion items were neon, leg warmers, jean jackets, parachute pants, giant shoulder pads, short skirts, and big, fluffy hair. Arcades were the ultimate hangout spot. I was there. Tetris was the #1 game. This was the beginning of hour-long infomercials, which we all loved, right?
Yeah.
And Bagel Bites, Cool Ranch Doritos, and quiche were some of the biggest items in food. Okay, we're going to hand it over to Shannon for the second part.
Okay, thank you, Marc. So here we are, 40 years after 1984, and Voltron has endured through all of that. So the big question is, how did we move from the small screen to it being part of collective culture? My favorite quote about this actually is from somebody that many of you know or are familiar with, and that would be Jeremy Correa. There's a quote that he gave in an interview when Voltron 40th was coming out, and it stuck with me. He said, "Voltron is bigger than me. It's bigger than anyone. It has a love and an energy. It's entered the zeitgeist. And all we can do, we can't even harness this power. All we can do is nudge it in certain ways." And I really have to agree with that statement. It's just been there. And I don't just mean for those of us in this room that have always loved it. There's people on the street who recognize the robot at very least in some form. And this is one of the earliest pictures that I know of personally where something was done. This actually came from a press packet that I was sent in the 80s by, this one came from the packet that Marc sent me in, I believe it was 85 or 86. And what's interesting about it, and I couldn't blow it up any bigger in this black and white picture, is Shaka Khan is there in the middle of the picture, and she's holding this little Voltron robot in her hands. And so the fact that as much that the Transformers were getting seen and talked about, the celebrities were also being seen as far back as this period of time with Voltron, just further added to that, I think. Another thing that we don't always talk about as much, especially in the day we have right now, with the age of streaming where you can go binge and choose things at just about any time, is that we were generally relegated to, you caught Voltron when it was on, or if, like in my house, if you were lucky, you had a VCR and you taped it. We had to tape it because we couldn't guarantee we always got home from school in time. And we just held on to all our tapes. But this was also the same time period when a lot of stuff started getting released on video cassette initially, and then later it would be other formats as well. And then all of a sudden, people could go rent it, or you could own it and watch it anytime you wanted. And what you've got here is one of the Sony ads that actually appeared in Billboard, where Sony was trying to sell to the various vendors who were reading Billboard, like, we've got it out there, you know, come get it from us. And it actually sold very successfully. I don't have all the chart details, that would take up too much time for this panel, but it was consistently highly rated for what they sold. So there were multiple videos that had several episodes on each of them. And as I said, it allowed the phenomenon to continue in homes well past when even the various television networks, syndication in this case, stopped carrying it. And as I said, there's a picture of a laser disc, which later came out in that format as well. And there is no way to tell how much having this level of accessibility may have contributed to the continuation of the life of the brand after the 1985-86 episodes in that year of running. But again, it's a phrase that I've heard a lot when we discuss the history of Voltron, is everything coming together, the whole lightning in the bottle effect, and the idea of everything being where it was at the time, being the first show in stereo sound, being one of the early ones available on video cassette. If all these things didn't line up the way they did, would we be sitting here today?
Did anybody have the laser disc, by the way? Anyone? What's it like on laser disc?
I'm too scared to touch it because it's sitting there for me.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that on another panel. Okay.
This is another one of those pieces that was in the press pack that I mentioned. Down in the lower right, it talks about a $75 Voltron 3 metal robot. Now, it doesn't say which one this is. Now, you guys have cooked the toys with know. That's Matchbox, isn't it? That did that?
Totally Matchbox.
Okay. At that time, it was being estimated to go for $250 in 2000. This was Money magazine deciding, okay, this is out in 85. So in 2000, it'll be worth $250. It went on to be that value, if not greater, depending on condition and timing. I did some eBay searches and that kind of thing today, and I'm like, okay, if that's what I think it is, that's not what it's quoting well above now what they were even thinking then. But the fact that Money magazine was even featuring a Matchbox robot in 1985, I'm like, cool.
And think about that, $75 in 1984 dollars. That was a very expensive item.
And then, of course, another place that it's shown up a lot, more so than I ever would have thought, is in corporate and societal culture when people are talking about coming together to do things. I've run across the phrase, come together like Voltron or form like Voltron. And I was doing some research for one of my master's projects, and I was supposed to be finding business-related articles. And I ran across it doing some other search, and I went, how many times do people use this expression? Put it in the query. Whoa, a lot. And I'm just like, again, it's like I was saying, it's like some of them, I'd love to know how many of them are fans or how many picked it up from other people. It's pretty crazy.
There's a lot of sports stars who used it, like Kobe Bryant, Marshall Falk, a lot of others, when they were talking about how their team did so well, they came together and we formed like Voltron. Also, Voltron is a verb in the Urban Dictionary.
Seriously?
Yes. Voltron is a verb means the coming together of people for one common cause.
Yeah, I know that we've run across this when we get to it. In the music, I've known of it used that way in music lyrics, but outside of that was, for me, that was the revelation.
There's a certain phrase, let's Voltron. I believe a part of speech for Voltron in that context is a verb.
Well, they
Yes.
use it during the Sprite commercials.
Right.
Hip-hop artists coming together
Yep.
on Voltron.
Yep.
Right.
Look up.
Now, there have been a number of movies over the years with Voltron appearances or homages in them. The earliest reference that I found, and this was actually courtesy of a site called Channel Frederator, so I'm not going to take full credit for this, but I wanted to share it, was actually in a film called Vice Versa. It features Fred Savage, and I think it's Judge Reinhold. You have to bear with me, my brain's on West Coast time. But I believe those were the two actors. And they do a role reversal, and in the middle of the one particular scene, they're playing with a remote-controlled Voltron robot. I've actually seen the footage of this. A more recent reference that I think most of us are familiar with are Ross and Marshall Thurber appearing in Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers alongside the Voltron robot statue.
And that's the recent movie, not the 80s cartoon show.
Right. The first time I did when it stood out to me in a live action when it's just a spoken reference was when my husband and I were in a theater watching Spider-Man No Way Home, and I looked down. Did they just say what I thought they said? And he said, okay.
The one character saying, I think that's like Power Rangers, and he goes, no, I think you mean like Voltron.
So the other ones are only by research. These are not so much my cup of tea, but I understand their references in Deadpool, Ready Player One, and Home Alone.
Yes, so in Deadpool, obviously everybody knows about the Voltron ring that came out from Han Solo. That was featured in Deadpool. He was in the arcade and he was playing skee-ball, and he got all these tickets and he traded them all in for a Voltron ring. And of course, he talked about the 5 lines come together to form one giant robot, and he was going to trade the ring for a date with the girl that he was hanging out with at the time. And then in Ready Player One, Planet Doom was featured as a big scene in the movie, and even though they didn't have the Voltron robot or anything in the movie, it was fitting enough that all this took place at Planet Doom. And then Home Alone.
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
Maybe it was one of the toys in the background or something. I do not.
I think it was a toy in the background.
He also did Tom Hanks.
Was it?
He had in the bunk bed scene, he has more bunk bed sheets.
That's good.
Ah,
Good call.
there you go.
Very good.
And Boss Baby.
Yeah.
Boss Baby.
Yeah, right.
Right, there you go. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, as far as television, again, most of these, other than the Robot Chicken, I have seen all of those. I've come across that there have been references in Dexter's Lab, in the Nickelodeon Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Rick and Morty, and there's a Christmas flashback in the live-action series Lost, very similar to what I described in Vice Versa, where they were opening Christmas presents, and it happens to be a Voltron.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't there a Voltron reference in the Goldbergs also?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Well, that would make, that does make total sense. That was,
Yeah.
that would be so.
Yeah.
There was also a battle between them and the Power Rangers, of course Voltron won. And they did a description of how and why Voltron won. How they were stronger than the Power Rangers.
See what happens when we come together like Voltron again?
That was part of my
All
goal
of
with this.
them.
It's like, I bring part, we talk.
So the next time we can all write the next panel together. What do you think?
Rick and Morty had an episode where they had ferrets, and they found one of the robot ferrets, and then of course Rick had to find all of them, and he called it a Gotron. And after he formed one Gotron, it wasn't enough. We had to go to all the multiple universes, the parallel universes, and find all of the ferrets in all of those universes, form those Gotrons so that we could form an even bigger Gotron from all of 5 Gotrons. So it just got crazy.
I think there was another episode that he had a smaller one. There was
Yes.
remote control and he
Yes,
got
there
mad,
was.
but he started shooting it.
That's right, there was.
Yep.
That was really cool.
Okay, this one, again, this was some of the Channel Frederator stuff, and I brought this one more because I'm curious if anybody knows of any others other than what's on this list. Apparently Gotcha Force on GameCube had one at the time, Cyber Machine Suzaku. Outside of ones that we've talked about, or you, I should say the two of you have talked about on the podcast that have actually been about Voltron or Beast King Goliath, these are the only ones that seem like they were tangential type references, and I don't know of any others.
There's a recent Funko game, I think that came out that includes Voltron in it.
It does.
But it's just a character within the game, right?
Right. I've played a little bit of it, but you see him in there. He's talking about the trans reality comic.
Okay.
So I haven't got very far to see if I can get him unlocked yet, but I was going around. So it'll be interesting once I get back to playing that one.
Okay.
Thinking so several times that Voltron has been used as a spokesperson, for lack of a better word, not that Voltron is actually speaking, but by presence, a spokesperson in commercials, including MetLife and the Honda ads that were more recent. I'm going to tell a little bit of a personal story about the MetLife Super Bowl ad, which is actually a bunch of different cartoon characters coming together, and Voltron happens to be one of them in the background. I am currently working on my second master's degree. My first master's degree is actually in communications, and it was a blend of public relations, advertising, and entertainment. It just so happens that my master's thesis was on comparing and contrasting the effectiveness of animated versus live action spokespeople in advertising versus public service announcements. And the Super Bowl commercial came out after I completed my degree. And so my now husband and I were sitting there watching the Super Bowl, and my husband goes, there's your master's degree come to life on the screen. And I go, yeah, this is true, Kevin. I was like, okay, I guess I was on the right track. And so that was neat to see it endure in those kind of ways.
Right. And for the Honda commercial, we actually had Jason Sperling on the podcast, and we had an episode all about that. The original voice actors, Neil Ross, B.J. Ward, and Michael Bell, were all brought back for this one.
And Jack Angel.
And Jack Angel, because there was a Zarkon in it as well. Yes. So if you want to see what the last thing was that Jack Angel did for Voltron, that was it.
And we've already referenced this before, but it's worthy of mention in its own right is the whole Voltron Sprite team-up campaign, which, as has already been mentioned, the group of hip-hop performers representing different styles. That was part of the thing that they were hitting on with. Not only were they 5 different ones, but they were representing 5 different parts of the hip-hop culture, with each of them taking on the lion and taking on King Zarkon, who again,
And
Jack Angel, yeah.
if you want to get the details of the songs and the hip-hop performers and the lines that they were in the Sprite commercial, there's an excerpt in the 30th anniversary book, Voltron from Days of Long Ago, a 30th anniversary celebration. So check it out.
Yeah, definitely, it's a good read. And here is a short list of songs that have been out that have referenced Voltron. Some of them are in the 30th edition book, but not all of them are. The most recent one that I'm aware of is a Mac Miller song from 2014. And that was actually because I hadn't paid attention to that chart in the book, and I'm sorry about that. But the Mac Miller reference was actually the first one that I was aware of. And then I started going backward, and then I went, that many? And I was kind of into music. My sister is the real music aficionado of the two of us. And I had no idea.
And just so you know, Voltron back in the day, in 1984, had to follow standards and practices. So there was a lot of stuff edited out because, you know, you couldn't be violent, you couldn't use swear words, all that kind of stuff. But this music didn't necessarily have to follow standards and practices.
So I think that's it for me, and
All right, how are we
Really
doing on time? We're 35 minutes in, so yeah, I think we got plenty of time here. So this was my merchandising reference. Yeah, if you all remember Spaceballs, that's the theme of this section of the presentation.
The kids are gonna love this.
Yeah, this is the stuff that came out either in 2024, was announced this year, or is anniversary related. So, Voltron, the toys! So we had the return of the retail priced Playmates Toys version of the Voltron Lions. Those had first come out back in 2017, and they were re-released this year with a little Voltron 40th anniversary branding instead of the Netflix branding, which was pretty cool. A lot of collectors, have to have that teeny tiny variation in the boxes, and I admit I'm one of those people.
This little thing makes a big difference. Okay.
All right, continue with toys. Bandai Tamashii Nations announced a newer release of their Soul Chogokin GX71 called the GX71 SP, which has got chrome where most of the silver colored bits had been. They're now vacuum metallized chrome kind of thing. And Voltron's hips there are black like the old Matchbox toy as opposed to the chrome that you saw on the TV show. So I do not have that one. Toynami has announced another re-release of their masterpiece Voltron that first appeared in 2004. This is very similar to the 30th anniversary release, except that apparently the Lion Key has some kind of a magnet thing in it that are supposed to activate light up eyes in all 5 lions. So I believe the 30th version had light up eyes only in black lions. So there you go. I don't know how to pronounce that. Robo-D-O-U, Robo-Dow, Robo-Do, Robo-something. But a special black-themed version of Voltron. This is a re-release of something they had released just a couple years back. Super 7, they've got this new, I think this is just for pre-order as of now. But now, if you ever wondered what Voltron's guts look like, now you can. It looks pretty cool. There's a lot of art from Japan from the 80s showing different cutaways of different giant mecha, and this is kind of a nice tip of the hat to that. So
now we know what Voltron's skull looks like?
What did he eat right before he went into battle? We'll find out.
Okay.
Super 7 continuing here. A couple more re-releases of their, I can't remember the exact name of this product, but it's Super 7's version of this Mattel Matty Collector Voltron. Similar size and articulation. They got the black themed version and a glow-in-the-dark version. So not just the sword is blazing, the whole robot is. And then there's the repackaging of their reaction figure in panache place style, itty-bitty box. I think the Voltron Store booth over a couple rooms down has got some of those. I may pick up one, they're pretty cute. The Jumbo Chan, this is on the left, was apparently a very limited release. I remember a bunch of people trying to pre-order on the day it was announced. And the thing on the right was a Blockbuster video. It resembles a clamshell VHS case from the old days with the character inside. You got one of those, right, Marc?
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool idea to bring Blockbuster back that way.
Yeah, and you don't have to rewind the robot. Unlike the tapes.
Be kind, rewind.
That's right. I'm biased, I guess, but I am super excited about the item on the left there. It's not yet available. It had been on pre-order on the Voltron Store website, store.voltron.com. The brand Panache Place, which had released a bunch of awesome action figures and stuff back in the 80s, the brand name has been revived by Voltron fans who have taken it upon themselves to make the very first Voltron-sized robeast action figure. You can still pre-order. My understanding is the Voltron Store will be getting these in stock as early as next week, which is cool. This is a tribute to the robeast. That was the second robeast, I believe, the second giant robeast that was featured in Voltron Defender of the Universe, which has been through retcon in the 30th anniversary book called Dieklops, and that name has been given to this robeast figure. It's really cool looking. And then on the right, this shipper box if you open it all the way up, it looks like what you see there on the right. So the Fisher-Price Little People, which were restyled in the 80s after the little peg people went out of fashion for various choking reasons. That form factor has continued for about 40 years now, and now they're making collectible figurines of different properties like Stranger Things and Friends and all this stuff. Well, Voltron got some time in the light as well. The cool thing about this is that each figurine is in a lion-shaped box, and you can Velcro them together to make the Voltron that you see there. So it's really, really neat.
Complete with blazing sword.
Yes. Voltron the Puzzle. This was announced very recently by Jakks Pacific. I know very little about it except that it is a 3D puzzle and has lights. And Mark, you've built puzzles like this before.
I've done some Star Wars ones with this same type of, you get all these flat pieces of cardboard and then you have to pick them out of the flat piece, and then you follow the directions, and then you bend these things and you put them into here and you put them into there, and it all forms the leg and the arms and the head and the torso and everything. So it's fun to do because you're building it yourself.
Are they cardstock sheets?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Okay. Because I remember the 3D puzzles that Warren made back in the 80s of the line and vehicle Voltron. They were thicker material. This reminds me a little bit, and I'm not saying this to be silly, but the Steak and Shake race cars you used to be able to fold from the kids' meals. Really cool stuff. Okay. Voltron the tree ornament. So you've seen some people with some of these just announced this year, and apparently they're selling quite well. If you can happen to find one or order one online, about this tall, it's really cool.
One on the auction table.
What's that?
One on the auction table.
Ah, there you go. So if you want one this weekend.
There's another opportunity. A little later today, there is a panel with Franklin Kofod and Steve Sterling that we are moderating, and we are going to be giving away one of those ornaments to a lucky fan in the audience.
Cool. Good stuff. Voltron, the skate decks. I don't collect skate decks, but they look really, really neat. So Han Cholo has done one. Finesse has been making quite a few in recent years. So those are really cool. Again, I don't collect skate decks, but if I did, I'd be all over these. And by that, I mean I'd be trying to skate on them and I'd fall all over these. Voltron the beer. Yes, if any of you have the VIP tickets and have access to the con suite or whatnot, whoever has access to the con suite, there are some of those in the fridge, I believe, although quite a few were consumed last night, I believe.
You can't keep these things out for very long.
Yeah, they're packed with dynatherms and infracells and all that good stuff. And, yeah,
I gotta say, do you have anything specific? Because
I was going to say, I've even heard of collectors just getting the beer, pouring it out, and keeping the can. That's what I've heard.
yes.
Yeah.
No, I drink it and then.
Okay.
So, I'm sure it all goes to good use.
Okay.
Voltron the beverage holders. So the same people who have been coordinating the beer releases have been making the glasses you see there on the right or the left. I know left from right most of the time. And the Voltron Store, as Marc just highlighted, had this tumbler here, which is pretty neat too. Yep. Voltron the t-shirts. There are always t-shirts, and there are a couple cool ones. I've not seen the Lion Force gym one in person yet, but good stuff.
They have it over there.
Okay. I've just barely been in the dealer room, so I haven't had a chance to experience all that yet. Voltron the backpack. That's neat. I've not seen that in person, but that's pretty cool.
So,
Who does? Oh, nice.
So if you were at San Diego Comic-Con this year, Funkoville is right next to Loungefly, because they're together, and you were able to get that Funko piece that we saw earlier, and there was a special edition Legendary Defender Voltron Funko, and then you could get this backpack as well in that same area.
That's cool. It reminds me of, because it's classic Voltron, it reminds me of the 80s kids' backpacks they made, but with the little molded Voltron face. With I think the light up eyes. Neat stuff. Voltron the pin. It's a pin. It's Voltron, and it's from Honcholo.
That's an enamel pin, right?
I think so.
Okay. And that's it.
Okay. Giveaway time.
It's giveaway time, it's giveaway time, it's giveaway time.
Give it away, give it away, give it
All
away.
right. I don't know.
You're the boss.
So I want to make this as fair as possible for anybody in the thing. Has anybody not bought one of these yet? Okay, let's try to make sure that we give it to somebody who has not bought it yet. All right, is that all right? Is that fair? Now, for each of the people that just raised their hands, I need you to tell me one of your favorite memories from the original series. So why don't we start over here, whoever raised your hands.
Of course, we're not ranking memories.
Right.
Actually, my favorite is the return of Sven.
Sven?
Now what happens to Sven and him getting in the Blue Lion and the prince, they think the princess is in there and they're like, wait, who's flying the Blue Lion? That was one of my favorite moments.
We actually, yeah. Who's flying Blue Lion? We had actually heard from Marc Handler when we interviewed him that was actually a fan request. That some of the feedback that they had gotten from the fans is, can you bring Sven back? And that's how it happened. Yeah. Right. Who was next? Who hadn't?
Actually, after I watched the Netflix one, because I found out there was more, and I was like, I have to watch more. But we actually became friends through Voltron in middle school. And we would like rush to school before it opened and then talk about the new seasons as it came out for the Netflix one. So I got into Shannon from that.
Nice. Okay, great. Right. Who was next? Go ahead.
I would rush home from school if I'm getting being songs every day.
Every day. Wow. Okay.
Like us talking about, she was excited to tell me about like how we were going to start. She had already seen it. That's my first time seeing it. It was actually the last time that I talked.
Okay. All right. Who was next? Go ahead.
It's probably my mother's least favorite memory, but I was so despondent about having to return the videotape to the store that I forced her to get out the home video camera and tape Voltron. I think that tape
Hey,
still exists.
it works, right?
Nice.
Okay, Susan?
I found it absolutely funny when the princess and Mom were supposed to reenact the two lovers came together on that bridge. And all the guys were fighting over the princess, and he's like, no, I'm good, you guys can do it.
Okay. Cindy?
The swimming scene when Princess Allura wore a two-piece in, one-piece out.
Okay. Angie?
The entire episode of Bridges on Planet, that one was pretty momentous, I guess, for me, just because not only am I so used to not going for world building for AV shows specifically, but it was Bridges on Planet.
Okay. Billy in the back.
So me and my brother, we always argue about the TV shows we like to watch. You like Diageo, I like Transformers. And then one day we decided to watch Voltron together, and that's what brought us together and made us brothers.
Oh.
So
Wow.
love us much more, and we both love it.
Cool. Who else is next? Go ahead. Yes.
I really like how, like, with the Americanized version, it's kind of controversial and stuff, but how they really responded to the viewers in America. And I love Queen Marilla.
Okay.
And I like how they brought her back. And
My favorite scene is where Merla and Muir are talking, and they're like, I'm going to tell you a secret. Lotor has foam shoulder pads under his arm. I think about that one a lot.
Is there anybody else that we missed? Okay. Okay. All right. So, what's your name? What's your name? Jasmine. Tasman. Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Great. All right. Thank you, everyone. Come back. Greg and I will be doing the moderating for the panel with Franklin Kofod and Steve Sterling, the original producers of Voltron. And then tomorrow, Greg and I have, what's it called?
Voltron Memories.
Voltron Memories, yes. That's the last panel before the final ceremonies. And Shannon?
My panel will be at 3 o'clock, right after the signing period next door. And if you want to talk more about what was going on with Voltron in 1985, we'll do it then.
Okay. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
The official opening ceremony is about to begin.
Yes.